Okay, this video is going to address a very specific question that I often hear from students when we talk to them about whether they're going to try out for moot court or not. And that is that we'll respond by saying, I'm not going to be an appellate lawyer, so I don't know why I would want to do moot court. You know, maybe I should do something related to trials, or maybe I should just do law journal or something like that. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you guys think that your moot court experience, what you've learned so far, and the skills that you're learning and everything, do you think it's just relevant to appellate practice, Logan?
No, not at all. Moot court is, I would say, out of all the activities you can do in law school, it's the most encompassing one that will apply to everything else once you get out of law school. Because you do the brief writing, you do it solo and with a partner. So it's solo work and partner work, everything that entails. And so you write briefs once you're out in the real world. Then you go and you argue in front of the judges. And just like you will in the real world, you'll argue in front of a judge. Or if you do appellate work, you'll have multiple judges potentially. And it really just takes everything that you could want to practice at before you enter the real world and puts it in there for you.
Anybody else want to add anything to that? Do you guys also think the same thing that Logan does, or how do you think about that question, or how would you answer the question if someone said to you, I'm not going to do appellate work, so why would I be interested in moot court?
I would say that appellate courts make most of the law, and that they're the ones interpreting statutes, setting down the common law. So to understand issues where they stand and how they're dealt with at the appellate level is useful, whether you're at trial, whether you are doing transactional work and you're wondering how a court would view a certain action you're taking. Everything kind of files down from the appellate court. So if you understand issues from how they're sent down from the appellate court, you know how courts are likely to treat certain situations. And that could be whether you're a litigator or whether you are just doing transactional corporate work or something like that. So that's how I think it's most relevant to those who aren't going to actually practice appellate law.
Mm-hmm. Trent, you were going to say something too?
Yeah, and just from my experience in the firm that I work for, I draft motions and pleadings for my bosses a lot. And while those are not briefs by any means, they encompass a lot of the same persuasive style writing that needs to be in those. And I've always been complimented at work about the stuff that I do, and I think that it's just over the last 6 months since the end of lawyering skills, and then especially through this last winter after I took AAA, they've noticed a better quality of writing from me, and I've started to get a lot more assignments like that. In addition to that, it makes it easier to synthesize law when you have to do it for your boss, because when you're sitting around doing this for a competition, let's say, it seems a little disconnected sometimes. It's hard to find that common theme through the prompt. But when you're working at home or for your future employer and you see the entirety of a case, sometimes we complain in moot court about the completeness of the record. But when you're working out in the real world, you see the completeness of the record, and it helps you once you get to that level of being able to research before you get that connectivity. It really helps afterwards, because it can expedite research topics that are really necessary in some of the cases that I deal with, including some criminal cases.
Tommy, you have an interest in immigration law in particular. Do you think that your moot court experience is going to be, even if you hadn't done an immigration competition, do you think that it would have been useful for you in pursuing, that's a specific area of the law?
Yeah, absolutely. I clerked 1L summer and 2L summer with an immigration court, and 1L summer, I was very fortunate to have an attorney supervisor that was very good with me and kind of walked me through a lot of stuff that maybe I could improve on in my writing. But besides that, the change from 1L summer to 2L summer after taking AAA in my writing was just, I mean, astounding. And I think to kind of go off of what Trenton was saying about people who decide not to take moot court or AAA, a lot of times they say, oh, well, I don't know enough law to be competent enough to write briefs about issues that I don't know. And I think that AAA challenges you and moot court challenges you to learn how to research a specific issue and, you know, really give you those practical skills in the real world, because when you get out and you're practicing, you're not going to know, maybe you'll be presented with a case that you have no idea. I have no idea how to even present or to start with this issue. And so it's a very good practice on how to start researching, learn an issue, and learn how to conquer it.
Yeah, so I think that last point's really, really relevant. I practiced law for several years before I became a law professor. And I can tell you for a fact that probably 90% of what I did, I had never done before, you know, and when I was first starting out, because the partners, they knew their area of the law, but they didn't know these new issues that were coming up. And so what do? They give it to an associate and they say, you research this and you give me advice on it. So you always are trying to learn things on the fly, and it does help to have experience and a sort of a game plan. And I think that's largely the skill you develop. And then Trent's point, I think, was really important there, which is it's a way for you to prove your competency to people who matter, which are the people who you're working for, and they will give you better assignments. And you will have better status with those folks, right? Because you show how good you are, how competent you are. And that comes not from just doing it once or twice, but also from repeated doing it. And that's one of the things that you do get through this system. Plus, we hope anyway, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, that it's going to produce a pretty good writing sample for you. That probably much better than your lawyering skills writing sample. I don't know if I want to go that far, but I do think that that's another helpful part of it. All right.
I used mine for a writing sample, my AAA brief.
You used your AAA brief, yeah.
To get my federal clerkship, yeah.
Okay.
Professor, if I could add one more thing, especially the oral arguments part and just speaking in public, I was very surprised to find out how similar job interviews are at big firms as a moot court oral argument is, because you're usually you're interviewing in front of a panel of people, usually like 4 to 5 people. So it's actually very similar to how a lot of interviews will go, especially at larger firms. So.
Yeah, that's something that's a good point, Dylan. I hadn't really thought about that. I had that same experience, although my experience was 12 people around a conference room in a law firm basement and me. So I do think it helped a lot that I had learned how to handle myself in front of a bunch of strange people looking at me and expecting me to have good answers to questions. All right, so we'll wrap up this one by saying that moot court is something that can help you regardless of the kind of practice that you want to do, and we'll hope that you'll consider it if you think that it's something that you would enjoy.